Alright, Rednecks, unfortunately we are stuck in the garage today, and luckily for me, I happen to have a house furnace in here that, if you look over here, that is the propane tank. Then we got my incoming air and my outgoing air. So there's actually a house furnace. If you can believe that, years ago I put a house furnace up there, and typically I don't work in the garage. If it ain't warm enough to work outside, I don't want to work. But we're gonna have to deal with what we got. Michigan's weather is random, and today's randomness is snow. So what we're going to do today is going to be a short video, but we're going to try and get something done. We're going to take a look at these taillights. I've already removed this one. I've had these sitting around for a couple years now in my shed. But before I go and replace these, I've already spliced the wires, or cut it off, spliced the wires, and we're going to do a quick test using my jumper box here. We're going to see if these things are bad after all. So let's get the pack set up, my jumper pack. We'll get these clamped onto the leads, and I will walk you through what needs to happen and what we're looking for. So let me get that set up. I'll get right back to you. Alright, first thing I want to go over is you got a nice pair of cutters like these. You're always going to be half tempted when removing a item like this is to just slide your cutters right over and cut all the wires. You don't want to do that. There's usually ground involved with power wires, and when you go and cut all of them at once, you are completing a circuit, and chances are you're going to either blow fuses, burn wires up. It's just not a good situation. So always make sure when you are cutting wires to cut them individually, cut them one at a time. That way you don't have that problem, and believe me, I've learned from experience, one at a time. Alright, now we need to figure out what these wires all do, and luckily for me, I know what my trailer color wires are, and if you look, I wrote them down here. Your ground wire is typically white or black. Black is pretty common for ground, but we know our white one is ground. Our running lights are brown, so on both the right and left turn signal, we're going to have a brown and a white. Now this is where things are going to be different. On the left side, or driver's side, we're going to have a yellow wire, and that is going to be our turn signal and our brake light wiring. And then on our right side, we're going to have a green wire instead of a yellow wire. So what we're going to do is we're going to throw our ground clamp on here, and then we're going to pinch our power onto our brown wire here, and then we're going to introduce the yellow wire to it, and we're going to see what happens with this lighting assembly using these wires. So let me get that set up here quick a sec, and we're going to test this light up. Okay, using our diagram here, we know our ground wire is white, so let's go ahead and hook that up to ground. Alright, and then our running lights are brown, so let's take our brown wire and hook it up, and then let's see what happens. Alright, that already, I think before it was a bit dimmer, so that's looking pretty good. The brake lights were where we were having our problems at, so let's touch that, and oh yeah, look at that. That's a lot better. Glad I tested these things out. Unfortunately, I already cut the wires. I assumed they were bad, and that was the wrong thing to do, is to ever assume something's bad. But let's get these things installed back on the truck and test it. Alright, the next thing we're going to do is we're going to connect these wires back together and see if we have a problem with our truck wiring. One thing I'm going to use is an interior house wire nut, and these are not a permanent solution for any automotive wiring. I don't care what it's for, don't use these. These are temporary, and they are good for testing wires and circuits, so that's what we're going to use them for. We are going to put our wires back together using these, and when we're done testing, these are coming back off, and then we're going to solder the wires back together, or you can crimp them. So let's get these installed. excellent. Like I said, temporary. Let's go turn on the running lights and see what this thing does. Alright, as you can clearly see, the light is quite dim, so I know the brake lights from looking at the last video are dim as well. So I'm guessing we have a ground problem because we bench tested this light and it's good. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to tap into the ground wire here and we're going to run it to the frame and see what this thing does. So let's do that. That looks a lot better. Here are this is our chassis ground wire right here. This is our ground wire to the light. So when I hold them together, you can see how dim it is. What I'm going to do is I'm going to take our light wire right here, connect it to our ground wire now, and look at how bright that is. Now, what I'm going to do is I'm going to go back in the cab and I'm going to hit the brake and see what it looks like. That looks a lot better. Now, what I'm going to do is that's our driver or our passenger side light right over there. I'm going to hook our new ground wire up to that. Look at that. Oh, it slipped off. Here, let me crimp them on together. There we go. I think that took care of our issue. Well, there you go. It's pretty obvious what needs to happen. We need to make a new ground wire, and then we will solder all these wires back together. I like it. Alright guys, had to put you in an unusual spot, but we're gonna get this shot. We're gonna get these wires soldered back together and yeah, let's get to work. There we go, guys. I'm far from professional, but yeah, I think they're gonna hold just fine. Always make sure when you do a solder joint, you give them a good tug and make sure nothing's gonna come loose. And do that obviously before and after you do your sleeves. So our next step is let's sand down the frame somewhere and attach our new ground wire. Well guys, with the brake lights taken care of, there is one more thing we can add to this video, and that is right here we got two spares that I bought off Craigslist for $40. So this thing needs some spares. Obviously we're going to be going, hopefully not, but we have the potential for flats, so definitely going to be using those, I have a feeling. But yeah, so brake lights fixed, spare tires. We're moving right along, man. This thing doesn't have much more work that it needs, but like, share, subscribe, get back to work. Ratchet! Come on, Ratchy! Come on!